Hey everyone, welcome back to the Shift Podcast. I'm your host, Ricardo, and this is the space where inspiration meets leaders, mentors, and the everyday person who wants to make a change in the lives of other people. This is the show where we bring on guests that will come in and share their expertise, that will share their wisdom, practical knowledge of how you can shift your mindset. It is rooted in the philosophy of Ubuntu, which means I am because we are. Because if you win, all of us win. And it's that framework that we use. Shift means shaping how I feel and think. So this week we have an amazing guest. Hey, welcome guys. This week we have an amazing guest. We got Giovanni with us. He's been in business for 41 years. And not only before I start, I just want to give a big, massive shout out to Giovanni. You know, he organized for me to be with Inner Spark. And Inner Spark is a organization that helps young people with personal development. I go across the country to help and empower young people in schools, in colleges, and if it wasn't for Giovanni, I wouldn't have done it. So I wanted to welcome him and also thank him for being on the show. Giovanni, welcome to the show. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
And that means a lot. I think in life, when somebody says thank you, it's worth a million.
Yeah.
A lot of people, sometimes they're afraid to say thank you, or they're afraid to sort of share their experience, and I think in life, if you're somebody that gives, then occasionally as a giver, you want to be recognised for it. That's all. You don't need anything for it, but it's just nice. So, for those who don't, it's okay to say thank you, and it makes people like myself and Ricardo do more for others who need the help. So thank you for the thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you. I remember just coming to see you, and you came on the Radio Cardiff show as well.
Yeah, I loved it.
And you just like instantly, you just thought, hey, Ricardo, what is your website? Yeah. And Anita and Avnish, what an amazing people as well. And I want to give a shout out to them as well. Yeah. But if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have done an impact as many. So it just take one person, isn't it?
But it's just what's nice about these things is it's what we call the ripple effect. So the idea is you help others and they help others. And that's what it's all about, You never know when it comes back.
You're right.
But when you give, you've got to give, not expecting a return, Because if you expect a return, believe me, you'll be disappointed.
Yeah.
There are givers, there are takers, and there are those who are appreciators, I call them, So
I do appreciate you. Giovanni, on the show, we have our signature question with, what is the shift? What does the shift mean to you? I mean, being in business for 41 years, how important is the shift for you?
That's a great question. So the shift to me is all about getting to your end goal, believing yourself, appreciating others, and realizing nothing is forever. So to me, what the shift is, basically, when you see something that's right, you carry on doing it. When you see something that's wrong, you stop. You think about it. You take advice. Then you make your decision. So, to me, I've gone through so many shifts in life, But the great thing is when things go wrong, which they occasionally will, that's your time to grow.
Okay.
That's your time to learn. That's the time to embrace and appreciate it and say, this is going wrong for a reason.
Yeah.
And to help others, you need to go through the maze yourself. So to me, the shift is basically as many mazes as you need to go through.
Wow.
And then getting through the other side.
Wow.
Is that okay?
That is fantastic. That's amazing.
Yeah. So I often answer questions, don't realize what the question was.
It's in there. It's already in there. So for people who don't know you, how would you describe yourself? What is it, just a little bit of background?
Wow, what's nice about life is you keep on finding yourself. So you are the way you are, and then as you get older and wiser and healthier, and that's the important thing, you then start realizing what and who you were when you were 11 years old.
Yeah.
And you start to question how your teachers taught you and what you believed as a child, because that's what makes you grow. And if all of a sudden you go through a phase in life where people have been negative to you because of the way you learn, then you can go up believing what they tell you. It's a lot of shit. It's a lot of nonsense. It's only when you get to a point in life when you realize you are in charge of your beliefs.
Okay.
You know, and that's the most important, because if you listen to your teachers, there are people I know in school. I mean, I was not. I was always the chap, you know, causing trouble, having a laugh.
Yeah.
And I say that now, I understand why. In those days, I couldn't study. My mind was racing. I've never been analysed, and I don't want to be, you know. But I think I borderline on ADHD, whatever that meant. In those days, it had no meaning.
Okay.
You know, you were just put in a corner and told to be quiet, you know. So I used to completely disrupt the class because I couldn't understand. And when I used to write, I used to write too fast. You know, out of my school, I'm more likely the most successful.
Wow.
You know, and when my teacher said to me, "You will never get anywhere in life," that hurt. You know, that really did. And I decided to show them I will. Other people would have believed those words. So to me, helping others is so important to understand, and also to learn in the way they know how to learn. And to me, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
There's one important thing in life, is helping people to understand that they can achieve their dreams.
Yeah.
Because that is so important. Because if you listen to other people, you know, you will just become like them. Always share your time. Always socialize with people who are good people, but more successful.
Yeah.
You know, it's easier to pull somebody up than push somebody up.
Oh.
I mean, you don't want to be a person that pulls people down, you know. So I think that's I've completely forgotten the question, but that's the answer. How did Giovanni? You have to rewind, guys. Rewind. Oh, okay, we understand that.
Yeah. How did Giovanni restaurants come into existence?
So a lot of people think that I took them over from my parents. I didn't. As a child, my father bought a chip shop when I was 12 in Grangetown. And that's where I had my first experience of manifestation, but not realising it. At the age of 12, when I went into this chip shop with my sister Francesca and Tina, we thought, wow, this is great. We've got a huge house to explore, all these cupboards. Within 2 weeks of us, you know, getting involved in helping to peel potatoes, we thought the novelty's worn off. Owning a chip shop was not fun.
Yeah.
So I used to offer to peel potatoes when Cardiff City were playing, you know, because I could listen to the game, because it was literally less than 200 yards, you know, as a crow flies, and I could tell you the score, I could tell you how many goals, how many misses, and I used to peel and a quarter of a ton of potatoes, 8 sacks, in the time there was a game of football on, you know. Saying to my father, one day I'm going to sit with the directors. One day I'm going to sit in the VIP seats at Cardiff City. Now, those that know me, you know, at Cardiff, I'm a big fan of Cardiff City.
Yes, you are.
I love Cardiff City. About a year ago, I sat in these seats where I sit. I'm one of the first 100 members. I think the 20th member of the foundation and the new ground. Wow! And I took my father to watch the games. You know, and we had a great time. We sponsored games. But about a year ago or so, you know, I sat there. Yeah. And as I was watching the game, I started crying. Wow. And the people with me, they were saying, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine." And they said, "What's wrong?" I said, "No, I'm fine." What it was, I had a realization that my dream to sit with the directors, you know, which I sit next to, and often with, in the best seats at the ground, came true. And I realized that manifestation is something that you can do without even thinking about it. You don't need to read a book. If you won't read it, manifestation is all about having a vision, believing in that vision, being grateful, celebrating it.
Yeah, right.
And even at times when you feel you're lying, keep on believing. People will tell you, "Don't be so stupid. Don't be so silly." Yeah. You know, ignore them. Believe it, and believe me, it will happen. Wow. You know? And that's another
12-year-old.
question I forgot. What the question
No,
was.
this is relevant stuff
Yeah.
because, like you're saying, the 12-year-old
Yeah.
seeing,
Yeah.
listening to
Yeah.
it, and seeing
Yeah.
you at the stadium. I
Yeah.
didn't know the story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
That
So
is-
it was good. But people say, "You okay?" I said, "Yeah, fine." I've just realised that I've been manifesting all my life.
Yeah.
So when I was 15, my father always made sure that I worked. It was always, you got to work to stay out of trouble. So when I was 15, I worked in a restaurant called the City Centre in La Locanda. And I was used to working in the chip shop. We'd be working away, And one day I was working. It was a big rugby international, and they asked me, to help out. And the chef didn't turn up that day. So rugby international, they put me in a kitchen.
Wow.
So as a glass collector, I went to help the chef cook. There were two big kitchens there. One was a grill, one was a restaurant. So I was in a grill. So the assistant chef, his bottle went. He was cooking these meals, 180 meals, and he said, I can't do it. So I took over. So you had a 30-year-old man and a 15-year-old boy, and I'm there. I start cooking as if I'm at my dad's chip shop. I'm literally cooking gammon, steak, chicken, banging it out, And they called the executive chef in, who I still call chef. His name is Vernon Fulks. And they said, look at this kid. And all of a sudden, can you imagine, I was offered a job there and then. And that's how I chose my career. I didn't have a choice. In those days, your career teacher would find you a job on how you did in your exams.
Yeah.
So if you were not able to study well, you'd go into a job like cleaning or waitering or chefing. If you were the top of the tree, you go into being an insurance broker or an accountant. I tell you what, I much prefer my life.
Wow.
I much prefer my life.
Wow.
I've done lots with figures, but that was because of nightclubs. Different story. Sorry, just joking. But those who get it.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is this, in those days you weren't able to choose your career.
Yeah.
You either fell into it or you were given a career.
Yeah.
You should be this or you should be that. That was a careers teacher. You never met the careers teacher, but they would tell you what to do.
Oh.
So a lot of people's lives go into a cycle of what other people think you should do.
Yeah.
And so you can imagine all of a sudden I went from being a trainee chef, then I went to college part-time, then I went to being a waiter in Cardiff, a barman, and then I went on to work on the ships. When I was 18, my father, Fedus, he gave me £1,000 to get me into debt. Very clever. So to buy a house at 18 in those days was a lot of money,
Yeah.
So I bought a house and I rented it out, and I went to work on the ships. So on the ships, I went on as a waiter, as a commie waiter, then as a waiter for 11 months. And it was hard work, 7 days a week. I used to make so much money and have so much fun, but work 7 days a week. Then I came home first time, and I use the word home as in Cardiff, as in Wales. I went back to the ships, and I was the first to ever get promoted as a assistant manager, like a chef de rang we call him, or like a table captain in charge of court of the restaurant. At the age of 19, 20.
Wow.
Then I became. I went to work in a bar on the ship, which was amazing. It was a great job. People have been waiting 20 years to get that job. I got it in 2.
Wow. Because of your work ethic.
Yeah, because I was an entertainer, and I spoke English well as well, And then I met an amazing family called Ron and Linda Bird, and they came to Cardiff to visit me. I went to visit them, and together we set up a restaurant in America called the Fox and Hounds. And even in those days, I was pretty switched on. We went for dinner one night, and Linda said to me, she said, we've always wanted to own a restaurant. And I went, okay, well, I'll pull out of the one I'm opening in Swansea, which I wasn't. And they gave me £17,000 and 17% shares, and we opened up this restaurant in New Jersey. It was amazing. It was successful. I didn't like America. I wanted to come back to Cardiff, and that's what I did. Came back to Cardiff. I ran a nightclub in Cardiff during the time I went to America and back, called Fatso's. for a guy called Eddie Pointer. There was a guy called Nick Newman, who I'm great friends with, who was a journalist, and he's the only guy I kept on board. I sacked everybody after Christmas and kept one guy who now went on to own the clubs and is now the licensee of Cardiff. Still a great friend. Went to America and then came back here when I was 24. See, I believe life is all about memories, not about money.
Okay.
People want to be bigger and better. Why? If you're bigger and better, one day your time will end.
You're right.
And what's going to happen then? Those who are not bigger and better than you are still living. They haven't got money to take with them, but if there's anything you can take with you, it's memories.
Memories, yeah.
You need to start banking in and cashing in and getting these memories going. The rest of it is just a load of bullshit. Memories, memories, memories.
You're right.
And great ones.
Yeah.
Learn from the bad ones and remember the good ones. As simple as that. Came back to Cardiff. I hired an ice cream van for 6 months. Rossi's. So I had to find something to do. I became the biggest, most profitable ice cream seller in 6 months.
Wow.
So I'd go into these big shows with my ice cream van and I'd say, I own the company. I didn't. I owned one.
Yeah.
And I used to put a bid in, right? And in life, you've got to trust your gut, I mean, mine's getting smaller, I know. You've got to trust your gut.
Yeah.
And I'd go, I'll give you, and I'd always make a bid that was more than it should have been. And I'd win these bids for the Bambanogi, for the horse show, Benton and Hedges, all these events, right? And I go, okay, yeah. Oh, shit. I'm not going to find the money. So I'd literally put word out, right? Who wants to rent the space? So I would pay, let's say, £1,000 for the event, right? This was 43 years ago. A lot of money then. And then I'd have 20 vans coming in, hot dog vans, ice cream vans, all that sort of stuff, right? Coming in, and they would give me. So I pay £1,000. They would give me, let's say, £200 each. Well, you're doing sums, I mean, 2 twos. That's that's £4,000. I'd make £3,000 profit.
Wow.
Plus, I'd have And then one day, somebody upset me, and it all went pear shaped because he came with his crowbar because I was on his territory. Because ice cream wars are pretty big. I mean, you can't go on people's territory. And I went, well, you don't own that, do you? So I went back into my New York gangster. It's my New York gangster. I used to live in New York, New Jersey. You're going to threaten me? If you're going to threaten me, then use it, otherwise I'll use it. And I did. Not on him, on his van. So I got sacked anyway. That's fine. It was good. I then went to work in a place called Le Monde in the Brasserie for a lovely man called Martinez, who I admire still. He's passed now, but love his children. They own those restaurants still, And I was a waiter for 6 months. And everybody there, except the owners, looked at me as a failure. They looked at me as a guy that came from America who had failed. But I was just there to learn how busy that area was. And I took all the hassle. I took all the grief they gave me. Go wash the dishes. All the shitty jobs they gave me. I went, yeah, that's fine, because I know I'm going to own my own restaurant one day.
Yeah.
And I did. And back to manifestation. Many years later, I went to buy this place, a caravan site it was. It was a caravan site with a little shop and a coffee shop and a supermarket. And it didn't happen. It didn't. The guy changed his mind, sold it to somebody else, and that really upset me. In fact, it annoyed me, So I thought it's not worth getting angry. I went into town with a friend of mine, Daphne, for a coffee in a place called Planters. So this is where manifestation really works. The place I was going to buy fell through.
Yeah.
I went for a coffee. There were 50 places I go for coffee. I went to this place called Planters. There was a guy called Brian Fry, and I always mention him in my conversations because he was amazing. He looked at me. He said, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "I'm sick and tired. This guy's just pulled out of a contract." And he said to me, well, if you want to buy a business, you can buy mine. And I literally shook hands that day and bought planters for £20,000.
Wow.
Which then became Giovanni's in a haze 41 years ago.
Wow.
And that story goes on and on. No, I needed more space. I found more space. It was just surreal, So it's nice to acknowledge people. So I believe in life. You've got to always say thank you and pass it on. It's important you pass on your. Don't be one of those people that go, I'm gonna pretend my life was perfect. No. Share your. You've got to share your wealth in some ways. Which I do. You've got to share your knowledge.
You're right.
If you've made mistakes in life, and you then share the knowledge and the learnings from those mistakes, either A, it feels good, or B, you're going to eventually sell the advice, and that feels better. But it's important that you're grateful and you pass it on. Yeah. You have to rein me in, because I'll just carry on talking for hours. I just I just love the thought of helping somebody else is so important.
And that's what you stand for. That's what you stand for. And so when did you got how many businesses?
Oh gosh,
you got.
So I got 3 businesses, and we need to type on. So I then Giovanni's restaurant became so busy, so popular, So I decided to open a place around the corner called the Continental, which was very close. I used to run back and forth, take the orders. I would run back and forth, taking orders all night. I mean, I was a lot slimmer then. I was very fit in those days. Yeah. So I got if there was a count, I think I did 20,000 steps a night. Because that was my fear. I was never educated to become a businessman. Everything I've done has been on vision, belief, and gratitude. Same now.
Following your
if your business goes quiet, it's not because there's other businesses. It's because you're not giving the energy you need to give to your customers. It's because your staff are not giving the energy. You must have people in your life that give energy. Just surround yourself with people who get excited.
You're right.
If there's 2 baths, one is clean and one is dirty, which would you jump in a clean one, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And that's what you do in life.
Yeah.
Always jump in an area which is full of people with passion.
With passion, yeah.
Yeah.
Even
then you do well.
Coming to your restaurants, there is energy there.
Yeah.
There's passion. There's people who love their job. When they serve, you can feel. But even when you are in there, I was thinking, like, even though you're the boss, it's like, just relax. No, there's constant energy and letting people. And another thing about you as well, when they are there, all these customers, you would make time for them.
Yeah.
You would go and stand there. How are you doing? And that sort. And that's the energy that every workplace should have.
Can I share something with you? So I get lots of people texting me, asking me about, can I book a table? Can we have an event? And I take that and I'll say, send me the details and I'll book it for you. And people say, well, why do you still take bookings personally?
Yeah.
And I say, well, I remember a time when I opened Giovanni's 41 years ago that I would pray to God that the phone would ring. So I would stand there to pick up the phone quickly, just to make sure that phone is ringing and we're getting reservations.
Yeah.
So why should I, 41 years later,
You're right.
be a snob? Why should I be Mr. Big, Mr. Rich guy? No, I still appreciate. And appreciation, I think, goes a long way.
You're right.
Because when you're home by yourself is when you get to do the thinking. When you're with the people, you get to do the talking, and the bullshitting. When you're home by yourself, you got to go, something, that felt good. That felt great,
great, That felt great.
Yeah.
The 4 things that you were saying, you were talking about choice, the why, the exit, and the balance.
Yeah.
So what did you mean by choice? Every journey begins with a choice, whether it starts a business or alone.
Yeah, so the question of choice is, you can ask anybody, you can read any book, you can listen to any podcast, especially yours. I think what's important is that you understand the choice is yours, and there's a thing, years ago I did a program with Landmark Education that Avnish put me on. He actually forced me to do it, and thank you, Avnish. It's called Chocolate and Vanilla Chews. It's about making a choice. If it's right, great. If it's wrong, change it. So, you know, so if you make a choice that's wrong, don't think, oh, I've made my choice now, it's too late. Do think about it. So the choice is important, that you, in your hands, in your head, and in your heart, have got choice.
You're right.
That's so important, you know.
Even footballers, right? Like, you can play a game, you can lose a clear-cut chance. The choice now is, are you going to think about that, or are you going to choose the next one? I'll be ready for the next one.
Yeah. I work, as you know, I coach a lot of athletes.
Yeah.
Like myself. Nearly.
Yeah.
I get great results from footballers. I mean, I've had footballers from Premier Division I work with down to non-league, and I've got them, every time I've got them to become the best player, man of the match, player of the year, and then all of a sudden they will make a decision that's wrong, you know, and they get stuck in it.
Yeah.
If you made a wrong decision, it doesn't matter. Either go forward or go backwards.
You're right.
But don't stay there complaining about it.
You're right.
You know, so you can advise people, they make the decision, you know. So that's the most important thing is choice is there for you to choose to do the right thing.
Yeah. You were saying about why it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day.
Why is the most important question in the world? I know that now, right? It's taken me a lot of time and a lot of money. So whether it's making a decision. So before I came here this morning, I was literally emptying, what I had was 6 containers full of stuff that I either bought or used or didn't sell, you know. And I'm down to my last 2 containers, which I've either sold or I give a lot of stuff away to people that need stuff, because that feels great, you know, because you're not going to get much for it. When I first started, I bought everything second hand.
Yeah.
So if I can give away some stuff to people who need it, you know, the second hand, it's had a full journey, you know.
Yeah.
But before you go into anything, into university, you know, to study, you go shopping to buy something, you know, you go into a relationship. Before you do anything, stop. Before you go to sleep, ask yourself, why? Now, if it's shopping, you know, why do I need this?
Yeah.
And if you can't come up with a compelling reason, then just don't buy it.
Just don't buy it.
You know, the best was university. The amount of students I've worked with, you know, why are you studying finance? Because my dad's an accountant. Or because all my friends have gone into that. Do you like it? I hate it. So what do you really want to do? I want to go into television. Why? And they'll rattle off a load of answers to why they wanted to do something different.
Yeah.
They just spent 5 years, 3 years in university because they didn't ask themselves the question, why?
Why?
Why is powerful. So when I look at these lockups full of, can I use the word crap? Full of stuff I don't need.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, why did I move the stuff? Because you can move things so many times, it ends up costing you a fortune. So whatever it may be, relationships, health, wealth, holidays, ask yourself the question, why?
Yeah.
Why do I need this? Why do I want this? Why?
What purpose will it serve me? Yeah. Exit. You were saying about the business like a tree, like a fruit tree.
Yeah.
You mentioned
so, again, back to I was never ever told what to do in business. That's why I coach a lot of entrepreneurs now, you know. In fact, when I had my restaurant in America, and I literally, right, every month I stay in touch with my business partner, Ron Bird. Whenever I help somebody, he's a multimillionaire, lovely family, I keep him involved with everything I do. So, although I left America, whenever I help somebody, I phone up Ron or I send him a picture and say, Ron, I'm doing this because of you.
Yeah.
Because you gave me a chance because you believed in me.
Come on.
I've gone on to own restaurants, nightclubs, other businesses. As you know, we feed the homeless twice a week in next to Giovanni's. I've got a mini farm for children with autism and Down syndrome, you know. And all of a sudden, you know, because of what he did, I like just to remind him, you know. But I was never, in fact, when I went to America, and he gave me this beautiful office with a fantastic bookkeeper, and she said to me, "So what's your GP?" I said to her, "I haven't thought about which doctor I'm going to use." I genuinely didn't realize that a GP was a gross profit, and I mean that.
Yeah.
So a gross profit, you know, is a GP. Now, you know, 43 years ago, I didn't have a clue what it was, and we laugh about it now, but that was the truth.
Wow.
But I knew I was going to achieve it, you know. And so when I say these words that are so powerful, and have carried me, I don't know how, but I know I will.
Wow.
I don't know how, but I know I will. And that's it. Your subconscious will work it out for you. Will work it out for you, you know. So right now, I'm at a place where I've achieved my dreams. I've crossed the finishing line. I've made my wealth. My children are financially doing very, very well. Ileana is doing amazing. She lives in Portugal. Great career. Absolutely so proud of her. My son, Gianluca, you know, he's an actor, producer. He's got a massive company he set up, takes millions. They don't want my money. They want my time.
Yes.
Now, the challenge is, if you're not taught to, when you start a project or a business, you know, what is the exit strategy, they call it. You know, when is a good time to sell? You just carry on running the race like that like the actor. What's that film where he runs all the time?
Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump. So I'm a Forrest Gump of business.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know when to stop.
Oh, okay.
And because my business is about people, they're my family, they're my friends. So you're now struggling with getting older. You know, I'm no longer in my 50s, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
And they're being blessed, thank God, with, you know, oil of Ulay skin, you know, as my mum used to call it, you know, and youth, you know. I take care of myself within reason. But all of a sudden, you go, okay, hang on a second. Everyone's telling you now to slow down. Why? You know, because you've gone past the finishing line. But I enjoy it. Yeah, but when you're going to start creating more magic moments and more memories? So, you know, that strategy is so important to ask yourself. So when you start off in business, get one site right. Whatever you got, make it 100% watertight. Watertight. You know, put all your energy to put structure, systems in place. And then employ people to use your systems. So I went from restaurants where I was very organised to owning nightclubs. The best nightclubs in Wales. The top 10 in the country. Number 10 it was called at the times. Contis, Latinos. Then my son took to the clubs over with me, and he turned them into amazing businesses with a guy called Jay Page, who we've sadly lost, called Capu and Ladybird. You know, I mean, we've had a great time. You've got to, in life, stop and remember the magic moments. Otherwise, other people will just go, oh, that was nice. Remember that, remember that, remember that. And they're just gone. You've got to remember. You've got to remember the great things you've done.
Yeah.
And let that be your energy.
100%. The balance you were saying about
balance. Yeah.
Your kids maybe want to need your time now in terms of legacy. Legacy matters.
Yeah.
What would you say about the balance?
If I look at legacy, so my legacy is brilliant. So I've created the first purpose-built cafe quarter in the UK. That was in Mill Lane. That was me coming back from a Tony Robbins event with Avanish and going, oh gosh, I opened this restaurant in Mill Lane in the wrong place. It had 3 lanes of traffic, buses. It was just the wrong place, full of trouble. I actually stood on a corner of the street and I visualized a cafe quarter. And my question was, well, why can't we have one in France, Italy, Spain, etc., you know, but not in Wales? So we then worked together. I designed it and did a lot of work with it with a guy called Chris Quinn from the Marriott Hotel. All of a sudden, we got £1 million off the government, local government, and we created a cafe quarter, and it was just, I'll say this, it was the pioneer. It started off the redevelopment in Mill Lane, The Hayes, Chippy Alley. I was involved in just changing the pavements because they were just dangerous, and the brewery quarter, So in life, this is important. If you believe in something, throw that stone, throw that pebble into the water, but don't look at it straight away. Give it time and look at how many ripples are caused, So I'm grateful, I'm blessed. I got a six-pack. So I'm grateful, I'm blessed.
You are.
And I do appreciate and love what's going on. So balance. No. If I didn't have balance, I'd have fallen off a long time ago. So when you go from a beautiful relationship, beautiful children, to then opening successful nightclubs that keep you away from the family, that keep you out until the early hours of the morning. I always felt in all my business, I've got to be there to make sure customers are safe. As a licensee, I would go home last. Doesn't affect it. It's not good for your health. I'd have one drink a night if that, I lost out on sleep. But you cannot expect to have a great relationship when you're a workaholic, or when you work with your partner, or when you give your customers so much that you don't give enough to your family. So you can give your family money, you can give them a beautiful home, you can buy them a beautiful car to drive around in, but time is the most important. Not the time you can cook with, the time you give to people, and the time you give to yourself. So the reason, again, I love to coach, the reason I love to share is because if I can get 1,000 people to enjoy their time with their families, enjoy their time with themselves as well as others, then going through that maze has been worthwhile. So balance is important, otherwise you'll fall over and you'll get run over and you'll get into trouble.
Man, and it seems like you will be running for many years. You'll be running for many years. Giovanni, thank you so much for that insight and helping us. But it's also, like you were saying there, what stood out for me when you said that exit with you is, how do we exit from people? We can never exit from people. So in your case is that beauty of it's not just a business, it's more than a business. And so for us, for anyone to say come out, it's like that's a disconnect from the very purpose, the why.
So what I will do now, in order for me to exit, is look for some junior partners, either people who work for me or advertise or looking for junior partners. I love to be able to I've done lots of television. I'm the mad Italian that bought the Arms Park turf. So I don't know if you know that when they knocked down the Arms Park, I was the guy that went to the auction and bought all the grass. Do you know that story?
Oh yes.
So in 10 days I managed to sell. I was Cardiff's biggest grass dealer in those days, and different type of grass, thank God. And it was so funny because I remember my wife at the time, poor Marisa, said to me, I said, I'm going to the Arms Park, I said, to buy some equipment, because they were knocking it down, And they had a big sale going on. And I remember saying to her, she said, don't do anything silly, don't go buying things you don't need. I said, no, I promise, because I used to always buy things I don't need. I've still got a house full of them. And then all of a sudden, I went there, bought all this kitchen equipment and sold it. I actually bought the President's Bar, and that became my bar in number 10, which was amazing, because when all the rugby players came, they could actually drink in the President's Bar, And then all of a sudden, I went back from buying and selling and dealing and making a profit on this stuff, and sat there feeling really proud that I'd literally not done anything silly. And then all of a sudden they said, okay, we're going to stop selling the chairs now. We're going to now start selling the grass. So they looked at me. There was banter between us, and the auctioneer said, we're going to now sell the last piece of grass. You know, he looked at me, he said, it looked nice on your garden, you know. So I thought about it. And then somebody bid for it. Then somebody else. And I went, oh, why not? Yeah, I'll have some last piece of grass. Well, all of a sudden, everyone started clapping. I thought, why are they clapping? What's going on? This little lady turned around and said, do you realise, love? She said, you've bought all the pitch. You've bought 97% of Cardiff Arms hallowed turf, never to be repeated, because it's the grass now is taken in and taken out.
Yeah.
That was grass that was growing, they call it hallowed turf because it was actually grown on site. So I went to cancel it. I thought, this is crazy. What am I going to do with a pitch? I went to cancel it, and 12 reporters from around the world came to interview me. And I thought, oh, I'll cancel it tomorrow. And I took all the interviews and again, back to manifestation. When I got home, my wife said to me, she said, how'd it go? I said, oh, really good. She said, did you do anything? Hope you did anything silly. I said, no. I went to bed that night. And when I woke up, I heard this voice, Giovanni, you better come downstairs. And there was me on Channel 5 television at the time, being interviewed with a green screen, which I thought was just a green screen, showing all the best rugby and football goals that were scored on the turf, and that I'd bought all the pitch, right? Which was quite funny for another reason. There's lots of these things all link up. I then said to myself, oh gosh, how am I going to get rid of this? You know, I've now bought, and they wanted £13,500 for it.
Wow.
And I went, wow, you know, how am I going to move it? So I was involved with Cardiff at the time. And so somebody phoned me saying, hi, Johnny, do you need any help moving this grass? You know? I said, yeah. I said, but I've got to afford to pay you. Well, no, he said, if you just give me some of the grass, he was a big rugby, he said, I'll move it for you all around the country. I said, okay, that's great. Then somebody else contacted me and said that the guy that was cutting up the grass, he said, don't pay for it. He said, because it's not going to cut properly. They've played 3 games on it in 10 days. It won't roll. So I eventually, and he said, I just want some of your wine racks. And I bought a whole hundreds of wine racks I didn't even need. I didn't know where to store them. I said, you can have them all. So all of a sudden he cut it up. He said, look, he said, don't pay them more than £3,500. He said, because, you know, I said, what am I going to do with it? I don't know. He said, but don't pay more. So they accepted the offer. Of course they did, you know. And then I went, okay, how can I sell this grass? Was the question. So I believe in life. If you ask yourself a question and you believe in the question, you really put it and you go, right, as if you're asking for help from somebody up there, or energy, whatever you want to call it. And I went, how am I going to get rid of all this grass? And believe me, when it arrived, it was, you can't believe how many pallets there were. They covered the whole field, you know, stacked up of where I used to. And all of a sudden, they turned around and they said, I got an idea. It was Father's Day. So we gave some away to charities, we sold some. And I went, a piece of turf for Father's Day. We'll give people a piece of turf. Then I went, hang on, I got restaurants. Let's call it a pizza turf. So we cut them up into square shapes, right? And we had ITV came and filmed me putting this piece of turf into the oven and taking it out. Right? We literally, within 10 days, sold the whole pitch. I put some at my house, you know. We gave lots away to charities and so on and so forth. Everybody wanted the piece where Ian Evans had scored a try, or Gareth Edwards had scored a try. We sold it literally in all around the world. This turf that I bought went, you know. So I say about legacy, you know, you can create so many legacies in life, because you think outside of the box, as they say, outside of the pizza box.
What is one advice that you could give people how to shift? How can they shift for themselves?
So this links back to the question, what's it all about? So if in life you don't know what it's all about, then ask yourself, you know, what is it all about? Why am I doing this? Is it going to make me happier or sadder? Is it going to make me wealthier or poorer? Is it going to take me further away or closer to my goal? You know, it's the most important thing is that question there. You know, for one, even now, let's say, for instance, right now you're going through a tough time. You know, appreciate it. It's basically there to help you grow. So learn from it. So I write down what I really want, why do I really want it, when do I really want to buy, what must I really do to get it, and who's going to really help me. Just do a brainstorm exercise.
Yeah.
Write it down. The more you write things down, and write things down when you're listening to a nice piece of music, you know, listen to your favourite songs, you know, drink lots of water, you know, when you're doing this stuff. But get excited. Remember, as they say, you come in this earth alone and you leave this earth alone. You may have people around you, but you leave it alone. If there is, and I believe there is, life after death, it's going to be in a shape of energy. You know, I can't see the universe being big enough to have, you know, years and years of bodies up there, you know. We know that doesn't happen. But if it is, where all of a sudden you literally take with you your memories via energy, it sounds a bit heavy, but it's important, you know, because great memories last, not just for you, for those you leave behind.
Definitely.
So, you know, the biggest thing is important is learn, appreciate, enjoy, and share your knowledge with others.
There we are.
And thank you.
Giovanni, thank you so much.
I put my best jacket on today.
For coming with your best jacket.
And it nearly fits me.
Yes, guys, thank you so much. It's great having Giovanni with us. And just like you said, though, 5 things, think about it. Also, ask yourself, what does I need to shift today? So, have a great time. Catch you guys on the next one. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel.
This guy is awesome. Ciao. Bye-bye.
Ciao.